Today, we're going to be kicking off phase 2 of the UglyTruck build, which is going to completely change the direction that this build is taking. I'm talking a complete 180. Everything you thought you knew about the UglyTruck, throw it out the window because we're starting over, sort of. Now, we're taking inspiration from 3 of my absolute favorite vehicle builds of all time. 1, the Unicorn Mustang, 2, the Crawfish drag truck, and 3, my COPO truck that we built right here in this garage. Now, have you guessed the theme that they have in common? Well, each of those vehicles sends power to all 4 wheels. Now, ever since we took the COPO truck down to LS Fest this spring, we did the drag racing and the speed stop challenge, well, I just couldn't shake the idea that my race motor, this 535 cubic inch big block, it had to be combined with a vehicle that actually could put power down to all 4 wheels, where currently the UglyTruck is only 2-wheel drive. Now, at first I thought about, well, why don't I just swap the big block into the COPO truck? But the COPO truck is done, it's perfect, and I don't want to mess with it. In fact, I probably will sell it. I also thought about buying another 4-wheel drive Silverado and kind of duplicate the whole build process. But the more I thought about that, the less it made sense, because I wanted to keep the legacy of the UglyTruck alive. That's the truck that helped launch my YouTube career, and I just love its dented and faded and unassuming exterior. But the big problem is, until today, it is 2-wheel drive. But that's going to change because we are headed out to get all the parts that we need to convert UglyTruck into a 4-wheel drive. So obviously there's a truck frame on the back of my trailer now, and as I saw him bring it out on the forklift, I kind of not started panicking, but I kind of got concerned because I have no idea how I'm going to unload this thing once we get back home. But first, I think I want to stop at a car wash just to kind of blast it off because there's a ton of rocks and dirt and stuff like that on there. And then we'll talk about the plan. So we have some good news and then we have some not so good news. The good news is we got our frame cleaned up. Most of that stuff was just kind of rocks and dirt that was stuffed up inside the lower channel of the frame. We got that all cleaned out, and I was actually able to get this thing unloaded into the garage at the house without killing myself, which was kind of a pretty big feat because this frame is awkward, it's big, and it is really, really heavy. So we got it safely loaded in the garage. I got it jacked up on some stands, kind of leveled out, and that brings me to the bad news. This brand new frame is actually a little bit bent. Now, when I bought it, they told me, look, our return policy basically says that as soon as you put this on the trailer, it is yours. No returns accepted, no ifs, ands, or buts. So they said, take some time and look it over. When I was looking at the frame on the forklift, I kind of walked around. I'm looking for like major damage, right? I saw pictures of the truck that this came from, and there was no collision damage that I could tell. And everything looked pretty straight. But unfortunately, each of the frame rails has a slight twist in them between the first and the second cab mounts. Basically, like if you look at the edge of the frame, it's supposed to be kind of plumb. Well, here the top is kind of tipped out like 3 degrees, and that side is tipped out like 5 degrees. Not a huge twist. I don't think there was any direct collision damage. I just think maybe the truck kind of got like Dukes of Hazzarded over a couple, based on the amount of rocks under it. Basically, I think this truck got some air possibly, and it just kind of tweaked those frame rails out a little bit. It's probably not bad enough to affect how the truck would drive, but you guys know me, you know, I want this thing to be perfect. So I probably will get this frame stripped down and I'll take it to a frame shop or something like that, just to have it checked out and like tweaked back into position. The good news is, though, I got a lot more than I bargained for. I got a really good deal on this frame, and they gave me a lot of extra stuff, maybe to make up for the bent frame, I don't know. Well, actually, I don't want to talk about that just yet. I want to tell you guys about what we're doing with this frame later on. But for now, I'm really excited. I just want to get started on this project and strip out all this other, like, stuff that I don't need. That was easy. I am the captain now. Yeah. All right, seeing as how it's now officially fall, we're all out of ice cream, and the wife picked these up. Pumpkin donuts. Actually better than they sound. Get them at Costco. Pretty yummy. And that's cool. Ooh, that is sloppy right there. No wonder the truck crashed. All right, so one more thing to check out, guys. Look how loose that pitman arm is. I know you just saw me hit it with a hammer to get that center link thing off, but this nut right here, it is way, way backed out. So this truck must have been like super, super sketchy to drive. So after going the rounds with the frame, I actually think we got it trued up to where it's pretty much perfect. Like on this side, I think it's like 90.1, 90 point, come on, make up your mind. Okay, 90.2, that's pretty dang close. And on the other side, I think I wound up with like 90.3 or 0.4, but basically that's close enough in my book. Now, it occurs to me though, up until this point, I haven't actually explained to you guys what we plan on doing and why we have a completely different frame in the first place. Now, the frames in these years of trucks between the two-wheel drive and four-wheel drive are very, very similar. In fact, I think the frame rails front to back are almost identical. In fact, from this body mount to the back, everything's exactly the same. But up here, there's a few minor differences, and it mostly has to do with the brackets and stuff needed to mount the front differential. Like the two-wheel drive has a big, heavy cross member here. So there's a few minor differences, but it's enough where it would be much simpler just to swap a complete new frame rather than cutting and welding. And not only that, this will give us the opportunity to get this thing cleaned up and painted and make a full-blown race spec rolling chassis without actually taking the UglyTruck apart for like 6 months or however long it's going to take. Hopefully not 6 months, but my plans for this build, like I mentioned, is kind of full race. We are going to be doing like 95% drag racing, but I do want the ability to, swap wheels and tires and maybe a sway bar change and run this thing on a road course or possibly a speed stop challenge or an autocross. The speed stop is like my jam. I absolutely love doing those, and I think this truck would be just hilarious and fun. But anyway, In terms of the rear suspension, we're going to be doing a 4-link. We're ditching the factory leaf springs, probably a drag style adjustable 4-link, possibly with the brackets on the outside of the frame, just because in my mind, it might be a little more stable in cornering with the brackets out here, and those have a ton of adjustments. We are going to be redoing pretty much all of these cross members at some point, but out back, I want my fuel cell to be mounted kind of like right in this area to get some weight from where the gas tank is now behind the rear axle. We'll have the battery and a few other things back here probably. I want to keep the bed of the truck open, so most of the stuff will be mounted below the bed floor. We'll also have, maybe additional cross members or drive shaft safety loops, just a bunch of tubing and bracing that'll kind of connect like our suspension brackets together with the frame, together with the roll cage, just because, we want to make this thing as strong and as safe as possible. Out front, we're still going to be maintaining the factory suspension mounting locations, but we are going to be lowering the truck kind of about like what the COPO truck looks like. That's kind of my final stance. We are going to be running coilovers instead of torsion bars. And then I am going to chop off these upper shock mounts and kind of build a custom bracket that lets me run just a little bit longer shock. I do have the brackets on the way that I need to actually repair those few little areas. We'll talk about that later. We are going to be running a stock style 8 1/4 IFS. I think they're more than strong enough. A lot of drag racers actually use those, but if we end up in a situation where we break a bunch of them, well, then we'll probably upgrade to like the GM 9 1/4 from the Duramax IFS trucks, but that will require a lot of re-engineering up here because the diff is a lot bigger. Other than that, the only major change I wanted to point out now is I'm actually going to try to set the engine back a couple of inches in the chassis just to get a little better weight distribution, because these things are so nose heavy. I mean, ideally, I think you want something like 50-50, maybe a little bit more weight up front, but these engines are heavy. So if possible, I'm going to shift it back a little bit. That'll allow me more room for intercooler and plumbing and stuff. That will require some reworking of the firewall, but because we're kind of going away from a street truck and more towards a race truck, well, we can ditch the HVAC box if need be. We can rework the trans tunnel. So that's just kind of the direction of the build that we're going. So coilovers all around, multi-link suspension out back, relocated drivetrain. And then let's talk about the big one, the type of 4- or all-wheel drive system that we plan on running, because obviously there's a difference between the two. Right now in the COPO truck, we have an all-wheel drive system, which I absolutely love. That's got an NV149 case, which I do want to find one for this project for things like autocrossing or speed stop or maybe the occasional street drive. But I'm not entirely sure if the NV149 has what it takes to hang with the full force of the turbo big block. So like if we want to make our pass, our 850 quarter-mile pass, we'll probably be running a NP261 for those types of events. I'm going to have 2 different transfer cases, 2 different sets of drive shafts, and I'll just swap back and forth depending on which type of event. And the front differential will work either way. So if you guys want to know more about the all-wheel drive setup that we're going to be running, check out the video that I'm going to link for the COPO truck, because I absolutely love how that truck works, and it's a fairly simple conversion. And thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. Let me know what you think of our plan for the UglyTruck 2.0. I think it's going to be awesome. We've got ourselves a big old nasty big block and 4-wheel drive or all-wheel drive.